There.
Okay, we have a quorum, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm Tamara DeRitter. I'm the chair for Rose City Park Neighborhood Association. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. Let's start with Ed.
Yeah, Ed Gorman, board vice chair.
And pass it to someone else.
Richard.
Richard Crockett, treasurer.
Pass it.
Jerry.
Jerry Parker, a board member.
Pass it.
Oh, I gotta see who's on.
Joe.
Don.
Don
Yeah, there he is.
Levine, board member.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Jeff Gifford, board member. Pass to Jennifer.
Jennifer's not here.
How about to Joe?
All right, I pass to Joe.
Hey, Joe. Joe, introduce yourself.
I don't know if Joe can hear us.
I don't see Joe.
He's there.
He's looking
Let's
for
introduce
flags.
Gary. Gary, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Gary Kuntz, the chairman of the East Columbia Neighborhood Association.
Okay, and Andrew?
My name is Andrew Pritchard, and I've lived in the Cully neighborhood for over 14 years, and the spokesperson and founder of No Jets Portland.
Okay, and we've got Mac.
Yes, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Bradley Young. My call sign's Mac. I'm a pilot with the 142nd Fighter Wing.
Ah,
And we know this is really not Izzy, but Izzy, that's your name for today.
Yep. Stephen Conklin, Public Affairs for the 142nd Wing.
Okay. All right.
And I see Joe now, so maybe he can introduce.
Hey, Joe.
Joe doesn't have any audio right now, so I'm going to text.
Oh, okay.
It looks like he's having technical problems.
Okay.
And the Griffiths are ringing the bell. They should be in a second.
Okay. We can wait just a few minutes for them to come on.
Quick question for the group, so that since I'll have about 45 minutes to tailor our brief presentation about our time on the agenda, how many people who are on screen right now have read the letter to Governor Brown dated June 17, 2019? By show of hands. Excellent.
Been a while.
Okay, so but it looks like most people have read it then. Excellent. That's good news. Thank you.
Jay's coming on.
we can hear him, but we can't see him.
Okay.
I'm here too.
Yeah, we can see.
Meg?
Is that Meg?
Yeah,
Mm.
I hope so.
Both Jay and Meg are both board members as well, just to let folks know. Okay, well, in our agenda tonight, we have review of the agenda and approval. And first off, we have the minutes, then treasurer's report, the CNN report, and new business. That's followed by our guest speakers. We have, in opposition to the overhead continuous descent approach, Andrew Pritchard and Gary Kuntz. And we have in favor of the approach is our Mac, and backup is Izzy. Then that's followed by our discussion of the May 26th general membership meeting. And then committee, the candidate question, the candidate elections. Oh, no, candidate questions update. And then we need to talk about elections, and I'm not sure where that is on the agenda. So we need to insert that somewhere, right, Ed?
Wouldn't that be part of the meeting?
Well, that's a good question. I think we are postponing the elections because of the COVID-19, and we may be pushing it off a couple months until we can actually meet face to face and have a accurate representation of members at that meeting. Otherwise, it becomes problematic because we have to get documentation of who's at the meeting, where they live, and if they're eligible to vote. So that needs to be inserted somewhere.
Well, I think that is in the 805, the May 26th general meeting program outline. It's there in smaller font, included in that.
Oh, I see it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Got it.
And I was wondering, I think we have 9 board members here. I don't think Neil's going to join. Do we, as a courtesy to our guests, do we want to maybe move the discussion of the OCDA up on the agenda and allow them to, or we have that, and then they can go on with their lives?
I'm
We're
good with that.
interested in how you run your meeting too.
I'm
That-
good with that.
That's fine with me. One quick note, I've got 2 hours of battery and that's it, because I'm running on battery.
What do you think,
Okay.
Jennifer?
Duly noted. Hi, Jennifer, can you hear us? Okay.
Yes,
Very
sorry.
good.
I was watching you on YouTube for like a hot minute before I realized that wasn't the right thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we look good on YouTube. I got it right here. It's running. So-
Excellent.
All right, so I'll move that we move the discussion over regarding the overhead continuous descent approach to the front of the agenda. And we take care of that now, process that now, and then continue on when
I'll
that's
second
finished.
it.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I can't see Jay and Meg.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've got a
We're coming
unanimous
online
vote.
on Meg's account.
There we go.
Okay. And Meg. Okay, it's been passed. Any opposition? I don't hear any. So let's move on. First, we then have Andrew Pritchard, or Andy, if you'd like to go ahead and give us your presentation.
Absolutely. Gary and I are going to double team this presentation. So I think Gary is going to start off.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. I've got some short remarks. I don't know where all the group is knowledge-wise, so if we cover what's obvious, I'm sorry. So I'm Gary Kuntz. I'm the chairman of the East Columbia neighborhood, and you've met Andrew. He lives in the Cully neighborhood. He's the founder of No Jets Portland. A little bit of the history of this is that over the decades, the Guard tried to implement what they call the OCDA landing maneuver, but the Portland community have successfully resisted. The OCDA is an overhead continuous descent approach. It's an overhead brake with a landing procedure used by the military. The maneuver has the fighter jet circle over Portland residential neighborhoods twice in a route to the runway, and this creates 2 noise events over residential areas that historically had none or little. So in 2017, with virtually no notice, we in East Columbia were surprised to learn that a 6-month test over our neighborhood had just been scheduled. The community protested with petitions and letters, and later with testimony at the Citizen Noise Advisory Committee, that's the CNAC. We prevailed in convincing the advisory committee that the maneuver over our residential area was inappropriate. The Guard then rejected the CNAC recommendations and implemented the pattern over us. The community, not just my neighborhood, but a lot of neighborhoods, then gathered evidence and crafted a comprehensive letter to Governor Brown. You've all seen or had a chance to read the letter with its attachments. The letter's on East Columbia neighborhood letterhead, but it's not just an East Columbia letter. I had to give it a return address. We need something to be able to reference it by. So I put it on our letterhead, but it represents input from a lot of community members. And so that's my short little spiel. I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Thanks, Gary. And to the esteemed members of the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association and Lieutenant Colonel and hey, Steve, good to see you again. Thank you for your service as guardians of the public's ears. Please know that, and this is the RCPNA, please know that you have the opportunity to improve the quality of life for thousands of Portlanders, and it wouldn't even take a dime out of RCPNA's budget. I'm Andrew Pritchard. I've lived in Cully for a while now, and as the founder and spokesperson for NoJetsPortland.com, I have sought to increase knowledge and awareness about the issue of OCDAs over our homes and schools. This is, amongst other things, a public health issue, and I'm convinced that if more people know what's going on and people could imagine their own neighborhood and schools underneath a new flight path, we could bring a stop to these industrial noise polluting practice maneuvers over civilian residential areas. Therefore, we're asking our colleagues at our CPNA to take action. Please endorse our dissertation-like letter from June 17 of 2019 to Governor Brown, or at least write a letter to the governor, which generally supports its findings and will serve as a community bulwark against expansion of the OCDA. The OCDA is a complicated, convoluted issue, and some people think that we oppose the Guards' activities or their fighter jets in general. And let me be clear, this is not the case. We support the Guards' mission, and we understand and appreciate the important work they do, as well as the unique fact that there's a military base at a major civilian airport. However, many Portlanders, including the neighborhoods of Cully, Concordia, East Columbia, Roseway, Sumner, Woodlawn, and Piedmont, specifically object to Orang's use of the OCDA over civilian residential areas. Today, RCPNA can strengthen the chorus of its neighbors and say no to a practice that fundamentally alters the soundscape and psychological landscape of our city. Portlanders have a decades-long track record of opposing the use of the OCDA because A, it's not appropriate to establish a new military flight path over historically unaffected areas, and B, it establishes an industrial practice in residential areas. It's the same reason you wouldn't open up a factory in the middle of Rose City Park. For decades, the Guard was mission and combat ready and practiced the OCDA elsewhere, and it can do so again. The Guard's actions speak louder than its words. It's pushed to expand the use of a maneuver that has been officially opposed by Portland City Council, state legislators, and multiple neighborhood associations of the impacted areas, belies its role as a good neighbor that says the right things. The Guard claims to care about public process and community feedback, but the historical record shows that at the end of the day, it blatantly ignored the desires of Portlanders, such as yourselves, and did whatever it felt like doing in spite of a lengthy public process. Who will keep the Guard in check? Incrementally, the Guard is flying the OCDA more frequently and over more people. For surrounding communities, it's death by 1,000 cuts. When does it stop? When is enough enough? By its own admission, the Guard's justifications for using the OCDA in Portland are its convenience and budgetary considerations. The Guard is compromising the peace and quality of life for thousands of Portlanders, primarily low income, in order to protect the peace and our quality of life and save on gas money. It doesn't make sense. So why does this matter? Noise pollution, it's real, and the World Health Organization agrees. And once again, this is not about regular airport noise. It's about this one maneuver, and that's it. At the Citizens Noise Advisory Committee, Portlanders testified that the noise pollution caused by the OCDA causes physical, mental, and psychological issues. It can trigger PTSD. People can't work from home or hear themselves think. In my home, the low-flying fighter jets shake floors, windows, and walls, and induce the awful sensation of your chest cavity and skull vibrating. It shakes the sky, and once I realized that it would forever rattle my nervous system, I had to get involved. It feels terrible, and I know I'm not the only one who has lost a lot of sleep because of the OCDA. And now I'm gonna ask some of you if you remember how it was in 2017 in Rose City Park during the test period. Many of you may recall those jets flew over your neighborhood more often than normal, over Safeway and south of Sandy Boulevard. It could be that way again if you don't take minimal action. Put yourself in someone else's shoes just for a moment. Just imagine if the Oregon Department of Transportation built a highway overpass directly over your home and did so without your consent and without compensating you. How would you feel? What if the Oregon Air National Guard flew a brand new flight path over your home, a home that was nowhere near military flight paths when you chose to move there? What happens when the next generation of fighter jets, which have even louder noise signatures, come to PDX? Without consent and without compensation, you would feel violated because your rights as a citizen are being abrogated in the interest of saving gas money or bureaucratic inertia. You would feel violated, as I do now, because the sovereignty of your home, your little slice of the American dream, is being sacrificed. The OCDA is an industrial practice that is incompatible with residential settings. Now imagine if National Guard ground troops, tanks, and jeeps routinely drilled through the streets of Rose City Park. No one would tolerate that because it would be considered to be an unacceptable industrial use for an area that is zoned residential. Though the technology of flight is seemingly miraculous, it is no less mundane. It is a failure of imagination of leaders to not see that the practice of these military maneuvers is unacceptable, whether through, on, or above civilian residential neighborhoods. Just because the OCDA occurs hundreds or thousands of feet above your head doesn't make it acceptable. Now's the time to address the evergreen issue of social equity. The OCDA usually does not occur over the wealthiest neighborhoods. The Cully neighborhood, which bears the brunt of the negative effects of the OCDA, is the most diverse neighborhood in the entire state. Many people in this lower income neighborhood don't have the means, knowledge, or even language skills to engage with the public process and stick up for themselves. Somehow the guy who runs the site of the Cully tire fire is somehow still in business, as an aside. The fact remains that the Orang will not put its commitments in writing, and we've asked them, and it currently reserves the right to escalate its use of the OCDA at any time and inflict more harm on Portlanders. Orang could once again renege on its commitments, or future base commanders without institutional knowledge of community sentiments could obliviously expand its use unless we bring it to a halt. Now the Guard says it will expand its use of a noise polluting maneuver. Is there any regulatory oversight for those who pollute? Marginalized communities are no less deserving of a noise pollutionless quality of life. Portlanders deserve to be treated equally, regardless of color, wealth, or class. RCPNA can support this cause by merely writing a letter. This is a social equity issue, a private property value issue, a public health issue, and most obviously, it's a quality of life issue. We thank you in advance for your help. And of course, we welcome questions and further discussion and can give our contact information to continue the dialogue after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Ed, you got us all muted.
There we go. Let me turn it over to Mac. Thank you very much, Andrew. And
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the RCPNA for allowing me to speak in front of you and on those cheery notes. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Mac Young. I am a fighter pilot with the 142nd Fighter Wing. A little bit about my own background and how I got to this position on your Zoom meeting here tonight. I graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 2004. I spent 8 years flying fighters for the active duty. I flew a combination of the F-15, the Eagle that you guys see over the skies of Portland, as well as the F-22 Raptor, one of our newest 5th gen frontline fighters we've got. I was fortunate enough back in 2012 to join the Oregon Air National Guard, get hired here in Portland to transition back to the F-15. Since 2012, in those past 7 years, I've become an instructor pilot in the aircraft. I've gone to weapons school and graduated, and I'm currently our Chief of Standardization and Evaluation. So not only am I an instructor pilot in the F-15, but I'm also an evaluator pilot. So when we give our pilots check rides, I am one of the handful of individuals that are allowed to evaluate those members. So as the Chief of Stan Eval, as we call it, I make sure that our folks uphold the standards, that they adhere to the rules and the rules and the guidelines that we have to fly within. As far as being a Portlander, I've lived in Portland very happily for the past 7 years. I've met a wonderful lady since I've been there. I married her and made her my wife. I now have a 2-year-old son and another son on the way. We've lived, she's a Portland native. She's lived in Portland her entire life outside of going to college. She works here in the Portland area, and we've lived, and I've lived here for the past 7 years. Granted, that's probably the shortest amount of time of anybody here on the meeting, but I do enjoy Portland. I'm fortunate to have other opportunities to go serve elsewhere for my country, but it's Portland I choose to make my home because of the community that it is, and it's the town that we love. I'm coming to you tonight not from Portland, but from an undisclosed deployed location. Me and 200 of my favorite Oregonians are currently deployed. And I think we would all agree that there's never a good time to be deployed from your families. But during the time of a global pandemic is probably the worst of the 6 deployments I've been on, the worst time to be away from my family. And that's unfortunately the nature of the business that we are in. I'm very, Andrew, I understand the sensitivity that people have to noise. Of those 6 deployments, more than one of them I've spent living in a tent on an airfield at the end of a runway. And I understand how disruptive noise can be. And I could tell you and give you the decibels of what an OHCDA, what an overhead continuous descent approach flown correctly gives you versus what a standard military overhead approach is. And I could give you the decibel readings, and I could give you the science behind why we think what we're doing is more or less impactful for the community. But noise is something that is, perception is king. Everybody perceives noise a little bit differently. So giving you that decibels is, if you think that that noise is sensitive to you, then it doesn't matter what that decibel reading is. That is a sensitive noise to you. And I understand that. I've been there, and it can be impactful. Knowing this, of the 13 years that I've been flying fighters in the United States Air Force, the deployments I've been on, the TDYs, I've flown fighters in almost every continent. And we do more at PDX to mitigate the noise impact that our jets have than anywhere else I have flown, hands down. And ultimately, what we do to mitigate that, the things that we do, whether it's a takeoff and mill power, whether it's an overhead continuous descent approach where I'm in idle the entire time, majority of that risk that we accept to minimize that noise gets translated onto the 30-some pilots we have, and and we are willing to accept that risk in order to try and mitigate that noise and that impact that we have on the local community, because we are members of the community ourselves. Our wives and our families work in the community. Our part-time, our drill status members are members of the community. They're Portland firefighters. They're pair farmers up in Hood River. They're local police officers. We have pilots that are integrated within the community. Granted, there's only 30-some of us, so we probably don't all get the opportunity to know them, but they're Portlanders just like the rest of us. The overhead continuous descent approach, and hence the long drawn out name, or the OHCDA, is not a standard military overhead pattern. I'm operating out of an international airport here, and we do a normal overhead pattern. It is definitely different than the OHCDA. We have modified a standard overhead pattern to make it a little bit of a higher arrival altitude so that we can be in a continuous descent, which requires less power adage, which ultimately results in less noise. So we've taken a standard military procedure that we need to be, that we're required to be proficient in, and that we need to, for our own safety in a deployed combat environment, need to be proficient into. And we've modified it to get the training we require, but have the most minimal noise impact that we can afford within the confines and the limits of safety. The OHCDA does help spread the noise footprint from a standard straight in. If you are underneath that standard flight path, if you're on Hayden Island and you see that same flight path day after day after day, that is very tying on those people. Granted, we are trying to have an effort to spread some of that noise around. It might have a greater impact overall, but it affords some of the some mitigation to the people that are on a standard straight in arrival. Additionally, it helps overall lessen our noise footprint because it allows us to get to and from our airspace quicker. The faster that I can get that jet out of the airspace over water and back safely landed at Portland, the quicker that I can do that, the less noise that I'm going to make. That's just factual data. Like Andrew said, it does use less gas. And ultimately, that I'm not saying that that's a cost savings that I see or that any of us see, but in these times of constrained fiscal responsibility, especially for your government, for your tax money, I think it affords us to spend more of that time executing the tactics that makes us proficient at what our wartime tasking would be, and less time making noise over the Portland community because we can get safely recovered quicker. For just some statistics, some usage statistics, I've only been in this seat as your chief of standardization evaluation for about the past 6 months. So I've been keeping statistics since about since early November. So for the past 6 months, we've only used the OHCDA just about 25% of the time. So 3/4 of the time, we're doing a standard straight-in arrival. And ultimately, a lot of the time, the deciding factor is we don't have the weather requirements that we need to do an OHCDA. I mean, we all live in Portland, especially this time of year. We know that we're going to be doing a weather arrival, which is a straight-in approach. In the last 30 days, we've only done 2 of them. In the last 60 days, we've only done 19 of them. In the last 90 days, we've only done 52 of them. So just a few statistics. And like I said, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. And I'm very open to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay, let me begin the questions. Do we want rebuttal first, or do we want to just ask questions? What do you think, Ed?
I think let's ask some questions. They may enhance the rebuttal opportunities to hear some questions initially. And when we dry up the questions, we can go to rebuttal.
Okay. My question is, Mac, that apparently the continuous descent maneuver that was unmodified used to take place somewhere else. The question is, where did that take place and why did it move here?
Ma'am, I'm unaware of us doing another approach elsewhere. For, again, like, I've only been a part of the organization since 2012. And so to talk you through what it would require for us to go do that maneuver elsewhere is, so our normal training area, our airspace is off the coast of Oregon. It's a warning area that we call Whiskey 570 that we as the Oregon Air National Guard own. We'll share it with Boeing when Boeing Test wants to use it. There's some UAS operators out of Tillamook that like to use it as well, but we are the main user of that. And it's off the coast of Oregon, and it allows us to execute the training that we require, going supersonic and flying at all altitudes that has zero impact to anybody else. So in order for us to go somewhere else and execute that procedure, it would require us to stop doing the air-to-air training that is our backbone, if you will, and start spending gas to go to another portion of Oregon. Obviously, we need a 8,000-foot runway, so nothing at Hillsboro is long enough. The next closest runway that might be usable would be Eugene or up to McCord up into Seattle. So now we're going to spend valuable gas and time that we could do training in the airspace to spend the 15 to 30 minutes to fly down to Eugene or to fly up to McCord. So it's that cost benefit analysis of, if I'm going to have to do that, now I'm not doing my primary job, which is air-to-air training. I'm going from point A to point B to practice one arrival instead of doing the air-to-air training that I would argue that the nation is asking me to do. And
But
I think as an anecdotal piece of that is, when I joined the organization in 2012, we went to an exercise at a major international airport. It was in Honolulu, operating at a Honolulu International Airport. So a large international airport in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with not many other options to go to if something goes wrong. While we were there, the Honolulu Tower told us that we were one mistake away from losing our ability to access the overhead pattern. It's a very busy international airport, and unfortunately, our guys were not trained to execute an overhead approach and had not done it with enough currency and recency that the Honolulu Tower was going to take that opportunity away from us because we couldn't do it. And so while that might have been an opportunity in the past, I would argue that method did not provide the necessary adequacy of training that we require, if that makes sense.
let me ask a second question. The issue is that this is taking place over a residential area. Is there a industrial area or a farm area nearby that you could use instead of right over the residence?
Unfortunately, not that I'm aware of. There's always been talk of, and Andrew and Gary, I'm sure you guys are aware of, and you probably tell me, like, Mac, why don't you just use the north runway, and then the noise goes out over the Columbia River, and the salmon are usually a lot less likely to be disturbed by the noise than the homes on the south side of the runway. And the main driver for that is the north runway doesn't have cables. So we don't require arresting gear every time we land like the Navy. That's not how we stop the aircraft. But when we have emergencies, there are certain hydraulic, certain issues that we'll have with either the landing gear or the aircraft itself that necessitate us to take an approach in cable, or should I land and not have the and my brakes just suddenly malfunction, I require a departure in cable. So our rules and regulations are written such that it requires several levels of approval above not just me or my squadron commander, but if I want to try and land on a runway without cables, it requires an approval process because of the amount of risk that it entails.
Does the maneuver entail the landing of the machine as well? Or is it just a maneuver and then you come back and land? Could you not do that, 10 minutes out from the urban area? One of the issues that you have in Oregon is that we do have an urban growth boundary, and that compacts the residential area a little bit more densely than you would anywhere else in the nation. So therein, you do make a big impact on those residences that you do fly over.
Good question. I mean, so I just told you that I had training airspace out over the water. Like, Mac, why don't you go use that where you just told me that you're not affecting anybody? Unfortunately, the initial, the arrival, and the landing, and ultimately the point of coming up initial and the standard military initial is because you can get more aircraft on the ground in a quicker amount of time than through any other arrival method. Additionally, you're spending less time in low altitude environment, which is where you are going to be at a higher risk to a man-pad, a more man-portable air defense system, some kind of shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile. So that is kind of the training impetus that of why we require executing this, and it's a visual maneuver. So out over the water where I don't have a runway to get lined up with, I don't have a runway to kind of descend and spiral towards, I can't get that same training. And ultimately, to answer your question, the arrival ends with us landing. And so that is, it's not just I show up at a point, I do a 360-degree spiral. I show up over the end of a runway, I do a spiral in relation to the threshold of that runway because that's where I want to touch down. The closer to the edge of that threshold of that runway that I can put my two main gears, the more landing room I have in front of me, which gives me the more space to stop, which is the safest that I can be. So I'm flying in relation to that piece of that edge of concrete on the ground, which I just can't do without a runway there.
Okay, thank you.
So on the materials that were provided to us, there was a photograph, and it showed four quadrants with various patterns, 2 out over the river and the 2 over the neighborhoods. Based on what you just related, what is preventing utilizing the open space is the lack of cables on the north runway.
Yes, sir.
If it was approved, and I understand there's a number of levels to get approval, and then of course funding, but were those cables to be approved and constructed, conceivably then you could move all of your OCDA exercises out over the river, north runway, since you could the wind patterns, you could go to from the west or the east, either way. So that seems to be a bottleneck. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say it is at initial glance, it seems like an easy kill because I go, well, if that's the only thing that's stopping me from using the north runway, then why don't we install cables on the north runway? And
Right.
but it is not only is it a significant expense so the cables that you require at an international runway, because non-military folks are using it, we call back 12, but they raise and lower. So the tower controllers and PDX, when they know that we're about to either take off or land, they hit a button and they raise and lower those cables. So there's plenty of moving mechanical parts. The cables also have to be certified every so often. In order to install one, it requires cutting through the runway to build that channel. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can only imagine the millions of dollars that it would cost to modify the north runway. But that is an option.
Go ahead, Andrew.
If I may interject,
you have some data on this?
Yeah, actually, and this actually cuts to the crux of part of our argument, which is whether it's using cables on the north runway or having the convenience of flying a shorter distance to practice this maneuver, as opposed to where it was practiced in the past, which was over at bases that were over or nearby less densely populated areas, such as Klamath Falls and McCord. And places that were specifically military bases, where no one's going to complain about that sound because that's a military base. That's to be expected. Part of the crux of the argument that we make, and it's in the letter and in our presentation tonight, is that it's saving, it's cost effective, and convenient. But in that cost benefit analysis, where does the peace and quality of life of this certain segment of the population come in? And we're saying, if this was happening over Laurelhurst or Sellwood, someone in that neighborhood would be on the phone, and 5 minutes later, this would be over. It'd be a done deal. That this component of social equity is important. And as a matter of fact, we actually met with Colonel Sittler, who is the base commander of the 142nd Air Wing. We had Gary and I had a sit down with him, and we discussed the idea of the cables with him. And setting all the technical jargon and aspects aside, and I understand, and probably going through layers of bureaucracy, I can only imagine how challenging that is with the military and the FAA and everything else. It comes down to money. And so decision makers are basically making this decision to cause psychological, mental, and physical health issues because it saves some money. And I'm just saying that should be factored into the cost benefit analysis. And that's where that's why we're here tonight, to say that's not okay. And also it was done elsewhere in the past. It can be done so again. And with regard to needing to do all the things that you need to do to be ready, of course, that's absolutely necessary. We don't contest that. But to say that the Oregon Air Guard has to perform the OCDA at PDX, otherwise it won't be ready, is to say that the Oregon Air Guard wasn't battle ready for the duration of the Cold War when they performed this maneuver elsewhere. Like, of course it can be done because it was done before, and it can be done again. Thank you.
I have a question, and probably should direct it at Steve, as the public relations guy, since he probably has more history to the background of this issue. So just so I'm clear, if we accept that this maneuver is necessary for preparedness for the Air Guard, is it true that this maneuver was performed at other airports in the past before it came to Portland?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that as well. So actually, Andrew, where did you get that part of info from? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just kind of curious so I can track that.
I'm trying to think from all my research.
I think they were using Kingsley.
Actually, some of that would have come from our meeting with Colonel Sittler. I don't have the notes from that meeting in front of me, but in terms of discussing that history, sometimes McCord up near Seattle, which was referenced earlier. So they used to practice this maneuver elsewhere. And then at a certain point, because of the aforementioned, it shaves off 15 to 30 minutes of fly time. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, I believe Mac has his hand up.
Just
Gary
to
was
again,
first.
I don't have the history prior to 2012. I have a feeling that when you think because it wasn't happening at Portland, it was getting done elsewhere. I honestly think it just wasn't getting done. Reference the discussion of almost getting it taken away from us in Hawaii. Just for to put some numbers to the thoughts of, well, we could go down and do it at Klamath Falls, which again, a big runway, long enough runway with cables because they have F-15s down there as well. Klamath Falls is 208 miles away from Portland. To frame that kind of that nautical miles, it is 40 miles from Portland to get to our Whiskey 570, our overwater airspace. So now you're going to take something that's 40 miles away, and you're going to make me go to my airspace to do some training, and then go another 200 miles away in the opposite direction. McCord a little bit closer, but it's still 100 miles. So when I go to and from my airspace, there's 80 miles in one day. If you want me to go up to McCord at the same time, now instead of transiting 80 miles, I've got to go 280 miles because it's 100 miles up there and 100 miles back. And now all I'm doing all day is going from point to point, and I'm a transport aircraft at that point. I'm not actually doing any air-to-air training. I'm just flying from point A to point B, not really accomplishing the goal. Like, because the goal of an air-to-air fighter is not to do an overhead approach. That is something we do to safely get recovered. The goal is for us to train in an air-to-air environment where I need to be able to go supersonic. I need airspace that I can go from the surface up to at least 50,000 feet. I've got to have an airspace where there's not anybody else flying through it, where I have the ability to practice employing ordnance against an outnumbered threat and adversary. And so when I'm spending my time driving to and from different airfields to practice one overhead maneuver, you're defeating the purpose in my mind of what we're trying to accomplish.
Well,
Okay.
you know, I can see that it's more efficient. I have another question for Steve. What was the process where the recommendation of the City of Portland and the Citizens Advisory Committee was discarded and the decision was made to proceed with the maneuver at Portland at PDX?
I'll have to get you some background info on that. From my understanding is that we did accept some of their terms. But again, I'm gonna have to get back with you the details for that. Maybe Colonel Young, do you have anything about that?
There were some of the terms, and again, I don't have that in front of me of what all of the recommendations were, but we did try and go in line with as many of their recommendations as we could. We're trying not to do it on weekends outside of our drill weekend, which is one of the only opportunities that our drill status, our parafarmers, our firefighters get the opportunity to fly. We're not doing it after 5 p.m. because again, that is family time, and that's time that we're trying to minimize that noise impact to all of the community. So there were numerous of the recommendations that we did accept, but I don't have the exact list in front of me. I'm sorry.
So who made that decision? Or what was the process that decision was made by Air Guard?
Stephen, do you want to take that? You might have better knowledge.
Yeah, I don't have perfect knowledge because I wasn't at that meeting. From what I understand, Colonel Duke Pirak, one of our former wing commanders, is the one that went to the CNAC to let the public know what we were accepting.
So it's a combination between the wing commander and the Noise Advisory Council coming to an agreement and a conclusion.
May I interject?
Okay, Gary, you've had your hand up for a while. Let's go ahead with that. And then we need to close the discussion and then.
I have a question that I've been waiting to ask.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so is
thanks, Joanne.
Gary. Let Gary go, Terry. He's been
That's fine.
Thanks,
quite a
Terry.
while.
So the process seemed to be that Phil Stenstrom, noise management manager at PDX, went and had a discussion with someone at the Air Guard. No notes were, or memorandum of understanding were released to us. There was just this discussion behind the scenes to me. The Guard said, oh, we'll accept some of these recommendations. They accepted use of the north runways. The Guard had asked for 7 days a week. The CNAC said, no, how about 5 days a week, except one drill weekend a month? The Guard accepted that. The Guard requested sunrise to sunset. The CNAC said, no, how about 9 to 5 or something like that? And the Guard says, okay, yeah, we'll accept that one also. So what they accepted wasn't very limiting. And what they asked for, I thought they were asking for the moon and stars so they could accept quite a bit less. And I want to point out that all the visiting squadrons, F-15s, 16s, 35s, 18s, they land safely on the north runway. You guys are using the north runway right now because the south runway is closed. Safety is always kind of a fuzzy thing. We want to be the safest we possibly can, but everything we do is optimized. The safest thing for flying would be to never get off the ground or fold your wheels up. That doesn't make any sense. The safest thing in driving your car would be to not do it. That doesn't make any sense. I want people to be safe, but at what price? Then the Guard.
Let's have Terry speak, please.
Thank you.
Okay, I certainly understand the readiness that the Guard has to have for this, given our pandemic, and it seems like a lot of places weren't ready. You can comment on that if you'd like, but my question is, we're talking about noise pollution, but if you have to fly several hundred miles to do your maneuvers, not only are you using gas, but you're adding pollution to the air. And the air travel, be it fighter jet or commercial or whatever, adds a lot of bad quality to the air. So how, I guess, is there a balance here that maybe somebody can talk to me about? Mac,
Yeah.
maybe you?
Terry, I agree. Like that, not only is it pollution because you're flying now, instead of just going off the coast, we're going from one, say, take McCord, for instance. We're going from one major metropolitan area in Portland to another major metropolitan area in Seattle. And now we're just passing the buck. If we go down to Klamath Falls, same thing. We're just passing the buck from Portland to Klamath Falls to that area down there. And so we are trying to find a balance. What is the best for all of us? And so ultimately, that's why when I was Tamara, when you said that Mac was here for being in favor of the OHCDA, and I would argue I'm not here because I'm in favor of it. I just think that it's the best for all of us. Does it impact some people? Yes. Does it impact all of us? Some more than others. But I ultimately think that it is that right now it's that happy medium. It's that we're trying to be safe with our aircraft and our pilots that fly it. We're trying to mitigate the noise as best we can within the boundaries of safety. And we're trying to minimize the usage as much as we can. I mean, when the south runway is closed, yeah, we'll gladly use the north runway because I have no other options. All I have is the north runway. And so we're trying to hit that balance. We're always open to ideas. If there is another safer, economical alternative, then I know Colonel Sittler would be more than happy to execute that. But we haven't found as best as we can find. We've put a lot of brain power behind how do we minimize the noise of this procedure and how do we balance safety training and the requirements that our nation is asking us. And ultimately, I think from all of the data I've seen, the OHCDA is that happy medium, but unfortunately you'll never make everybody happy.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, at this point, we're over our allotted time. And Ed, if you feel it's comfortable, let's the board members talk about it at this point, or let these folks go, or what do you want to do?
Well, earlier today, I communicated to you that there's a sensitivity to the board representing the entire community. I believe this issue was next door discussion some months back, and reading the comments, there was intense perspectives given from next door participants on both sides of the issue. And as I said, I think rather than the board making a decision for their 4,500 households, that we at least provide an opportunity with a survey open for a week or something. And this video is being recorded. Anyone who's interested in viewing the video or just weighing in on a survey that we'll make available on our website, I think we ought to engage that process, and then subsequent to that, maybe the board can have a discussion. I don't know that there's a sense of urgency, Andrew, Gary, Mac, Steve, for us to make a decision. There's no critical actions that are happening at this point. Is that correct?
We don't need a resolution tonight. Gary and I continue to build our coalition, and that's part of why we're here tonight. And once again, that's why that makes sense. I think that's a prudent decision to receive more input from the broader community, and factoring in the uniqueness of the situation demands more thought and diligence. And I think that we welcome that, because I think the more people dig into the issue, and once again, we encourage people to just read the letter. If you read the letter, it answers, actually would have answered half the questions that were asked tonight. It's in there, especially if you dig into the appendices. It's in there. So, and
Well,
we think,
it's our job to make sure that people hear it as well as just read it. So
Cameron, do we need a motion for the survey?
I think we do. Let's you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we send a survey out on this issue.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion. Is there any discussion about this from other members?
Well, I think we should, one, I'll edit the video, a copy of the video to just include the particulars of this discussion and make it available. And then we'll give notice through our MailChimp, Facebook, Nextdoor, that the opportunity is there. Also provide a link to the documents that have been provided to us, and set a time frame. And at the end of that time frame, whatever feedback we get, we'll utilize with our own discussion and determine whether how we want to go on this.
Terry, do you take that on as a friendly amendment? Okay, so we've got a motion on the table. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 How about you, Megan?
I just wanted to make a comment about making sure when we look at our survey data that we're taking into account the fact that we need to look into the bias behind the participants in the survey, instead of just looking at the straight percentages of what people that respond say, because we know there's going to be an overrepresentation from people who are passionate about this issue and an underrepresentation from people that don't know anything about the issue. So I think that's an important part of analysis of the survey data.
And I don't really think that a survey, well, any data that comes out of a survey that we're going to put out there on this issue is really going to be valid data to help us make a decision. It is going to be a lot of people with very passionate, as Meg said, opinions, and probably knee-jerk reactions without a lot of information one way or the other.
That's true, Jay, but as we know, the past year, the neighborhood associations have been criticized for not representing everyone in their community. And I think it's imperative that we provide the opportunity and then as best we can, analyze the information we get, as Meg says, and go from there. But I think it's a real misstep if we just unilaterally make a choice here. I think we open ourselves up to legitimate criticism.
So, Meg, would you be willing to work with me on the survey, at least to help minimize the bias?
Yeah, my schedule should be getting a little bit less crazy here shortly.
Okay.
You know, summer's gonna happen eventually.
Eventually. Okay.
Just
All
But
right.
yeah,
So,
I should have a little more time. They just voted to furlough us, so I will
oh
have
my.
more time.
Okay. So Jennifer, did you make an, were you in favor of the motion? Yes, I
Yes.
guess. Okay,
I'm
and
just
Joe,
being
were you in favor of the motion?
Yes, you guys got me on mute, so I just raised my hand as in.
Okay, got it. I just want to make sure. And do we have Neil on the phone?
That could be Neil. Okay. And somebody
Oh,
else.
we got
can.
Jeffrey. Jeff, did you raise your hand on this motion?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Um,
Okay. Then the motion passes and we'll proceed with a survey and bring back the results of that. But I'll be working with Meg on that. Hopefully we can cobble something together. And I'd like to run the survey by both Andrew and Mac to make sure it's accurate
Yeah.
before we send it out, if that's okay.
I'll let you know in general. You'll probably do yourself all of you a service and not waste time and energy if you don't have the survey be about people's feelings, but keep it to some yes or no questions about do you or do you not want to write, say, a letter of support to the governor, and kind of it'll be a less is more thing. It's definitely easy to get bogged down because there are some aspects of this issue that could be emotional and all that. And for the sake of expediency and amongst other things, if you keep it kind of dry and detached, that you'll probably be thankful. As someone who's been in the morass of this for a few years, I can assure you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I really
Thank you,
appreciate the presentations tonight.
Thank you
Thanks
very
a lot for
much,
having us.
everybody. We really appreciate it. And Tamara, if there's anyone else, if anyone has a specific follow-up question, you have our contact information. Please send them our way. We welcome that. And Mac and Steve, thank you both for doing what you do. It's really important stuff. And
Really
thanks for your
important
time as
stuff.
well. Super awesome.
All right.
And Gary,
Thank you,
thank you
guys.
for being here as well.
You bet. Take care, Mac. Good to see
Thank you, guys.
Steve.
Take it easy.
And we've got Nate Ramsey with us.
Hello.
Hi.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Nate Ramsey. Yeah, I joined the communications committee meeting last night and been
Oh, great. Welcome.
talking with Ed over the last couple months. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I'm joining a little bit late.
That's all right. We're going to go back to our agenda that was set aside. And with that, we've got the minutes for approval from 3/3/2020.
I read them and they looked very nice, so I would move to accept them.
Is there
I
a
will
second?
second.
Okay, all
Second.
those in favor, say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Okay, Joe, did I see a hand?
Sorry, I'm distracted because I still see Andrew on screen. Is that what he wants to be?
Oh, sorry. No, I was just
Yeah, you guys are
Doing
welcome
some
to
more work here at
stay.
my desk.
You can
Welcome to
stay, but
stay.
I wanted you to be aware that you're still in the meeting. That's all.
Okay, thank you. No, yeah, I might just hang out for a little bit. I'm just doing some work at my desk, so thanks.
Great.
Okay.
Go ahead and mute me.
Yeah, all four of them are still present, so that's their choice.
Okay. So the minutes have been passed by, I think, everyone here as board members. Let's follow up with the treasurer's report. Richard?
The only activity we had was our 48 cents or whatever it was that we got in for interest for the month. So we're in good stead, and that information is on the board packet for this meeting.
Where do we bank at now?
Beneficial State Bank up at the corner of 60th and Sandy.
57th.
57th.
I'm looking at it.
Good. That's not bad interest rate considering Wells Fargo doesn't do hardly any. So I'll check it out. Thank you. All right, we've got the Central Northeast Neighbors report. Is there anything to report since their meeting is actually tomorrow? Jay?
No.
What's on the agenda?
We are having a Zoom check-in tomorrow, and I have not seen an agenda.
Oh, okay.
It's slated to be a very short meeting.
All right. That sounds like not much to talk about. Sweet. Okay. Then we have new business. I was given the heads up by Michael Roth's former wife that there is poison hemlock infestation along the Alameda Bluff. And it was in an email that included like 4 other families up there that are concerned about this. And poison hemlock, from what I've read, is actually can be deadly. And just touching the leaves or the bark can cause major blisters. So it could be a problem. And I wanted to bring that up as one topic that we should at least give people a heads up about that needs to be eradicated.
Any specifics on what the Alameda Ridge means?
It's the area behind the homes on that hillside above the food carts. So when you're driving up Sandy up towards
So just up there below Wisteria.
Yes. And so the area that's an open bank on
Who
the Alameda
manages
Ridge.
that?
Isn't that the property owner's problem?
Yeah.
So it depends on the people who reside on Wisteria Drive or Joe Westerman, who owns the property on the north side of Sandy, where I think you'd have to determine where those adjacent property lines run to determine who's responsible for it.
I think it is a noxious weed, but I'm not a weed control person, and I'm not quite sure how to do anything about it other than identifying it as a problem to the property owners.
And who brought this to your, the wife of,
The former
Person.
wife of Michael Roth.
and, okay.
I've never been able to pronounce her name.
In the Q1 Nguyen.
Say what?
Q1. I think.
Yuan Ju. Yeah, so Yuan brought it up. And I'm not quite sure what she expects us to have the power to do.
It's
So I
not
thought I'd
someplace-
throw it out to you.
It's not some place the public would normally go.
True, but if it catches on fire, then it's in the air.
Oh, okay.
And I know from a fact, like poison ivy, catches on fire, it goes into the lungs, because my brother Dan almost died from that.
So I was just looking it up, and it's also called cow parsnip, which is what I knew it as being called out in the country where I grew up. And it's super common, and sort of one of these that comes in a degraded environment. You know, it's like a first weed that comes in. I'm not sure that I haven't read, maybe you read somewhere about the burning and it going in the air. I know the oils in poison oak and poison ivy will do that, but I'm not sure about cow parsnip. It's more of like the root, I think. Because it's sort of like one of these carrot relatives. Sorry, I don't need to geek out on plants, but
No, that's cool. I love it.
I don't think it will. It maybe for a small population of people, they're extremely sensitive, like the blisters on the hands and things, but I don't think it's super commonly that way. I'm trying to get an article up, but it's not loading. So anyway, I don't think we can do much about it though.
I actually just pulled this up. Thanks, Meg, and Google. This is also all over the bluff, the Rose City Golf Course bluff. And,
interesting.
Yeah, and also my kids and I have been running around in this. So, but it's pretty prevalent.
Okay, and you haven't come down with a major rash from?
No, I mean, I try not to touch plants because I'm allergic to a lot of stuff, but I mean, it's.
So Tamara, you might, Suzanne Briggs and the Cliff Clippers, as they are, who are working on the ridge by the golf course, perhaps reach out to her. They've got some very knowledgeable, I think the gentleman who's leading that group is quite well educated and in the plant lore.
But if she says, yeah, it's a problem, what should I do about it?
Then ask her to refer some resources that you can give to Kion.
Okay.
So according to Oregon State Extension, it's deadly if you eat it. It's a biannual. And we can identify it from carrot or parsnip by profuse numbers of purple spots on the stem. So it doesn't have purple spots on the stem, it may not be that particular plant.
Okay.
And it smells like mouse urine.
Yum. More than I needed to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, Tamara, I agree. I don't think there's much we can do about it other than maybe contact Suzanne and if she's got some input, but it's private property, at least in those locations and out of our jurisdiction, if we have jurisdiction.
All right.
Oh, it does say it's bad if it's burned though. I just got to that part. So don't burn it to get rid of it.
Don't smoke the stuff. Okay, got it. Are there any other items that are new business?
Yeah, I revised it, the Zoom plan. So in order to hold these meetings and live stream them, we tried Jitsi, it didn't work. And so Richard, with authorization, paid for a 1 month Zoom Pro plan that allows us to live stream. And the question is, for the foreseeable future, we're probably going to be holding virtual meetings. The Land Use Committee, Transportation Committee meets monthly. Our desire to live stream those. We have 8 board meetings a year. With special meetings, we have more. We have 4 general meetings. Do we want to just pay the $12.99 a month times 12, whatever that is, to get an annual plan at this point, or go month to month at $14.99 as we deem necessary? So should get some resolution on that. My opinion, it makes sense to get an annual plan so we can service the different committees and put that information out there, put the live streams out there, make them available.
Once we are able to meet face to face, is there any benefit to having the Zoom? Can we broadcast our meetings that way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it just requires an internet connection.
Okay. So
We have at all the sites where we meet.
I would entertain a motion if anyone is so interested.
I'll make a motion that we purchase a year's subscription.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. Next, we've got
I've got a quick, can I do a quick new business? It's just a quick
oh, sure.
announcement.
Yeah,
really.
please.
Friday, Laurelhurst teachers will be doing a parade through the south side of our neighborhood. The map is, it's gonna go down south of Broadway, or not Broad, no,
Halsey.
south of Halsey, a couple of blocks.
Okay.
Across. So if you see, you know, ruckus, cheering, whatnot, that's what that's all about.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can the neighborhood come and watch you? Like what time is it going to be? And
Let me find it. Hold on. They said to tell your neighbors so that they're not alarmed.
How far east are they coming?
Let me take a look. Hold on. Well, that was from Dr. Amore, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it open. Here we go. So it's gonna go down down 53rd to Multnomah, and then to Wasco and 47th. So it'll go like between the parks there.
okay, what time and when? What day?
It is Friday at 2 p.m. So they're encouraging the students and their families to sit on their porches, and then people that don't live on the route to stay 10 to 15 feet apart on the sidewalk. And, you know, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so kids are making signs and things like that. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
And so does it begin at 53rd and Multnomah?
Probably not.
Okay. Maybe you can get me the details.
It starts at Laurelhurst School.
Okay.
I can forward you the email that I got with the route on it.
That'd be great. Because I'd like to get that out on next door.
Yeah, it mostly is going to be in the North Tabor neighborhood and the Laurelhurst neighborhood, but it comes through our neighborhood on that side.
Yay. Okay. Yay, teachers. Both my parents are teachers or were teachers. Okay. Anything else as new business, folks? All right. So now we are to the May meeting. May 26th.
Sorry, one more thing.
Oh,
About
okay.
Teacher parades. Rose City Park Elementary is doing a teacher parade too, which will, and I can give you the details from the email. I thought I saw it in an email. I don't know. They always make this so hard, but it'll be somewhere like leave Rose City Park School, head south on 57th toward the golf course, west toward Hollywood, and then east toward Madison High School. So that will run kind of mostly through our neighborhood. So
okay, and that's going to be tomorrow or Friday.
Oh, it would be really helpful if they would post this in like email instead of through like some crazy remind app. I have no idea when. I think it's I don't know when it's supposed to be. I might be a little frustrated with PPS's 47 different apps that they use to communicate with parents and students.
Okay, well, if you could forward me whatever you've got, would be great.
We'll do it.
All right, thank you. All right,
On my end, I have to send it out. Like I have to send the remind that says class is starting. I have to post it on Google Classroom, and I have to email all my students. Those 3 things. Well, no, I don't email. I guess remind emails them and texts them. So they get it in email and text, and then they get, it on Google Classroom.
okay, all before midnight, right?
I send that out like 2 minutes before class starts. I'm like, get here.
Oh, weird. New times. Okay, so are we done with new business? Okay, so now we're to the May 26th general membership meeting. And the discussion of the program outline and board elections. Joe? Have you gotten any feedback yet for your, or have you sent out the request for stories?
No, not yet. I was going to use this meeting as an opportunity. I got a few like looks good replies, and Ed suggested putting in that it'd be virtual. I actually had that in there originally and someone edited it out, so I can definitely put that back in, Ed, because I would agree. But yeah, I would send it out tomorrow if no one else. I just want to make sure the board was okay with it because it is going to go out from all of us, not just me.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done, Joe, with that one exception of that edited out piece that people could get confused and think that we were going to have a face-to-face meeting, and it may impact their willingness to engage. So, but I well written.
Looks good to me as well.
Okay.
With it, so I'll just.
I've gone ahead and put out a request to Deborah Kafori to see if, as the chair of Multnomah County, would be willing to drop into our Zoom meeting to talk to us as a guest appearance.
Oh,
we were trying to do something non-political, but she's like the spokesperson for health for the county. I'm open to other suggestions of who we could have. Any ideas, Jennifer?
I like that suggestion.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I think she would be great if she'll accept, or someone from the Oregon Health Authority.
I could try that.
I've been following, they have a really good COVID-19 page, and you can sign up for updates, and anyone from that organization is going to have a lot of knowledge on the subject.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, their reports are pretty thorough.
Yeah, I like it because it's just data and fact-based. There's no conjecture, there's no prose. It's just straight up, here's what's going on in Oregon by the numbers.
Right. And one thing that, you know, it's how you can get COVID-19 is kind of a moving target because they still don't know if it can be aerosolized. So that's been one of the concerns, is if it can get into the air system and then be spread from room to room. So I don't know if they know yet, but that has occurred in one situation where someone was in front of the air conditioner and it blew past him, and then it went to the rest of the people in the room.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I think cruise ships were also susceptible to that. Joe, real quick, when you put out your invite for, so we've created a email address, share your story at rcpna.org. It goes to you, and
Lynn and Meg
Lynn.
and Tamara, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
You're going to put that out on Nextdoor. We can put something up on the website and Facebook.
Okay.
If you want to prepare, something that would be appropriate.
Lynn, are you there with a barking dog?
I am here with not a barking dog.
Okay, someone's there with a barking dog.
That
Okay.
was my dog. I'm muted.
Thank you.
Anyway, Joe, yeah, and
So I'll,
of course, it'll depend on the response you get, but do you have an idea amount of time you'd like to allocate on the program maximum?
for people to share their stories.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought that far. I think it will depend on how many people we get.
Okay. In the format, you're going to receive submittals and then one or more of the 4 people will read them, or do you want?
The idea was, we haven't formalized anything really, but it was just to get the stories in, and then we would read them. And as our little subcommittee here, we would evaluate and decide what we thought was. One thought I had was we should probably also call and talk to this person and just get a feel for their ability to share a story. And we just want to, you want to be careful when you have a public forum that you're not just giving a voice box to someone to go off. So,
Right.
Yeah, so I think we should vet these people and probably talk to them prior.
And maybe they prefer to have someone else read it as a proxy rather than, they may not have a computer, they may not be computer literate, or Zoom may flummox them. So be open to all of those things.
Yeah, and then maybe next week I'll drop an email to Meg, Tamara, and Lynn and say, there's Lynn. Say, hey, we've got 5 stories in. Why don't we do a quick call, or maybe we just trade emails back and forth. What do you guys like, don't like, etc.
Calling's always fun. Nice to see people.
Calling is usually better for me as far as making sure I give the time to it that it needs.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay.
Ed, sorry, I'm not sure. You were mentioning posting on the RCPNA website and Facebook.
Yeah, I can put it up there as well, and could send out an email on a MailChimp, although the last couple of MailChimp emails that have been, the last night's communications committee meeting, the digital only newsletters that we sent out, we got about 10% of the people on average that actually, well, there was somewhere to 40% actually opened email, and about roughly 10%, I don't want to quibble about exact numbers, actually went to the link to go read the newsletter online. So
That's not bad, actually.
yeah,
And we don't know how many clicked through on either from Nextdoor or from Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we can utilize all those mediums, Joe, in addition to Nextdoor.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make the edit to the message and then I'll send it over to you to post on Facebook and
Terrific.
landing page. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so my understanding is that we'd probably have introductions, and so the first 15 minutes is introductions, getting everybody together and recognizing where people are, maybe their address, I don't know. We can just think about that, and then move into the agenda. And I'm not sure if there's any special reports that we want to speak about, such as we probably need to talk about the elections, and then we probably need to talk about our summer concerts, because we don't know if we're actually going to have those. So those 2 things need to be spoken about. And then we have a presenter. And then after the presenter and questions and answers, then we go into what people are doing to help their neighbors during the COVID-19 situation. So, and that's what Joe is mining for right now. Does that sound like a good enough program for everyone?
I had one thought, just as an announcement within the meeting at some point, because right after the meeting in June is going to be the RIP hearing. And so you might want to make an announcement for that.
It might be, I don't know, having the main speaker first or the stories first is something to consider. Some people think maybe the meeting's over when the main speaker is done talking.
Could be.
I don't know. Have the stories kind of a short, I thought that, you know, if we get 4 people, it's going to be maybe 20 minutes, you know, 5-minute story, 3 to 7 minute story is probably like a pretty average length. So I would think that we would be done. It would be a 20 to 30 minute section. And then the main speaker could be the rest of the time, probably.
That'd be fine if we want to put the main speaker at the end. It'd be
I
nice
think we
to
need to
have
have a
something.
back. Oh, I'm sorry. I just said we need to have a backup in case we aren't able to get a main speaker. I mean, it's a reality that we always face.
Puppets.
Rocky?
Puppets, there you go.
Okay.
You could have Michael Roth do some magic.
Ooh.
Too bad Larry isn't around so that he could have played some music.
And yodel.
Oh.
So Tamara, you mentioned the elections. What are you talking about? Board elections or
I am.
the primary? Okay, the elections. All right. So,
You want to discuss what the information that we've gotten so far, Ed?
on the board elections,
Yeah.
you're talking about Allen Fields?
Yep.
Okay. So the analysis by Allen Fields, he's an attorney who works kind of in this field of nonprofits. He's on the Richmond Neighborhood Association Board and Southeast Uplift, very active in the code amendment, the 3.96. And he wrote a piece regarding elections in this current environment. He reviewed the ORS, I think it's called Charter 96 is the applicable section, and also the civic life rules. And in his opinion, it's feasible to have an election online. It has to be conducted with a public aspect, i.e. live streaming to YouTube or Facebook, which we're doing right now. And the folks who, it's imperative that you verify that the folks who actually vote reside within the boundaries of Rose City or own a business or all the usual protocol for that. So those are basically the guidelines. So we had a practice meeting a couple of days ago with Don, Kelly, Richard, and myself. And Don had a good idea in terms of voting during the meeting. There's a capability to conduct a poll with this pro plan. Don had experienced one just previously. It would necessitate opening up the Zoom meeting to the public at large so that they can participate in the poll. And somehow we'd have to verify who they are and are they eligible, which is a challenge. But you might be able, there's the ability within the poll to have a question of some length and then multiple choice answers, like yes or no answers. So conceivably you could do something like the question would entail listing the current board members who are seeking to be reelected and perhaps any new nominees. And I think you could do it live. You could add people and assign, say Tamara would be A, I would be B, Richard would be C, Jennifer would be D. And then in the answers you could have for A, yes or no, B, yes or no, C, yes or no. And people could reply to the, give their input to the poll, how they're voting for each of those positions. That's just an idea. I don't know if somebody else has a different idea or methodology, but that might work.
The hard part here would be, how do we verify who the person is and whether or not they live in the.
Well, you could do it, it could be an election that isn't finalized until verification is completed, and maybe people have to send some documentation like a bill or something from Portland Maps.
Oh my gosh.
Their property owner.
What kind of verification have we done up to this point? I mean, people are just
residency at a general meeting.
We have people sign in on the sign-in sheet and write down their address.
Right,
and
but we're not verifying that, are we?
Right. We haven't been really efficient in the past, but there'd be more scrutiny in this context than there would be at a general meeting where admittedly we've just done the whole slate. Everybody want to vote for these people and the audience goes yes, and then it's a done deal. But Mr. Fields cautioned against that. So
would the poll
send in a picture of their phone bill? Well, who has a phone bill anymore?
Yeah, Terry is the guy. I think Carrie, when they sign into the poll, they have to put in their address, which would be the equivalent of signing in.
But is the poll something you click or is it verbal?
It's a click.
It's a click.
Terry.
That might get complicated for people like me that aren't all that tech savvy.
Well, we did a practice one. It didn't seem that difficult. Don, is that correct? Your experience?
My experience is that it's very simple to make a selection. It's a separate pop-up on the screen and you make your selection and then you can close that out and it's tabulated instantly. So the host can post the results right away.
Is it?
I'm sorry?
Do you know who's voting how? In other words, is it a secret ballot or is it an open ballot?
It's a secret ballot. They're making a selection on their home screen. You have no idea who's voting for what. It's just a total percentage of people that select this option or that option.
So the only people that would see the results would be whoever, Ed or Tamara, whoever's hosting the meeting?
No, you can post it so that all the participants can see the results.
Okay.
The other option is
the various types of equipment people are using too, because we're going to have people on tablets, we're going to have people on phones, and it has to cover all those possibilities.
Yeah. So the simpler solution is just to postpone the election. Mr. Fields said that that's very permissible, that you postpone it. The existing board members and officers retain their positions according to the ORS and the cities, I believe it was the ORS, until there's an election. And he didn't see any reason, in his opinion, in this current environment, that postponing the election would be a problem with anybody who would be concerned about that.
And it would be incumbent on us to make that announcement and also put it in the newsletter of when that is likely to take place, I think, right?
Well, and I'm looking at the bylaws, and we do have the right, as I'm sure you know, to have special membership meetings too. So we could call a special membership meeting for that purpose.
If we decided to postpone the election, which is what I'd like to see happen, because I think we'll get better participation, would we have to suspend the bylaws to do that.
That's what I'm looking at, Terry, right now. That's what I'm reading.
Yeah, that's why you tipped me off.
Let's see here.
I think
think
the
it did-
extension of the elections until the next general meeting that is possible, be it special or regular, would be the prudent thing to do.
The current bylaws specify that it be done at the spring meeting, but
It's
mean,
a
if you-
spring meeting, yes.
right. But, obviously we've got, exigent circumstances here that it might be prudent for the board to take action today to, whatever we need to do so that we can, suspend the, whatever we need to do to get around the bylaws to do this formally. I mean, I don't know what that would be, but other than just a vote, because obviously we can't. I would certainly think that the governor's recommendations and orders to not gather would supersede the bylaws.
I think it would be good if we had a deadline. That we would hold a public meeting no later than like September 2020. I'm not sure when our fall general membership meeting is.
It's in
but if we
October.
can-
It's end of October.
End of October.
What if we just said we postpone it till the fall meeting? Which gives us a little bit of leeway.
I think that works. Why don't we move to postpone till October 26th or whenever it is, and that'll be part of the next general meeting, but we postponing the election. So if I can make a motion, that's my motion, is we postpone till October. We can make that announcement, and because we need time to reevaluate what's going on. And
I will second your motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Getting dark, you can hardly see me.
I know, you're disappearing. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, it passes.
Yay.
Good.
So was
All
that
right.
was that officially for the fall meeting, whatever day that that falls on?
Yeah,
October.
October something.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to
So-
turn the lights on because I jumped my neighbor's car today, so kind of took a little out of the battery.
You
You want
just
the
got
engine
this
on,
great
so-
glow to you, Terry. Okay. Are we done with this topic?
Let's just real quick review. You're looking at an intro, maybe the stories. We're not going to have the election.
Yeah, we actually, I need to do the announcements, which is, dealing with the election, concerts in the park, whatever happens with that, and announce that the RIP is coming through in June for a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, and then I was thinking having the neighborhood stories about what you're doing with COVID. I'd like to save a fun COVID story for the very end, like something that has kids in it, and have that after the speaker. But next we would have the speaker if we can get one, and then the last COVID story, and then adjourn.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Is there any general business that needs to be discussed at the meeting?
Like what Tamara just said about the elections and.
Well, I mean, just like, board reports or treasury report, any of that sort of thing.
That's true. Well,
I would say keep it to a minimum.
Yeah, we introduced committee reports recently at the general meetings. Again, echoing what Terry said, if we could just be concise. Open to some questions if there were any, but.
okay, let's do
concise.
board reports and do it before we do the COVID stories. How about that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that, Lynn or Tamara, is that you're referring to like, I just dawned on me like, oh yeah, usually I go up and I would say something about the playground project.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Land use, events, communication.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, you know, community events could cover the concerts in the park topic. And the residential infill in June could be part of the land use topic.
Yeah.
And as for the playground committee, we've launched, although it's been muted a bit by what's going on, but we're actually still raising money and launched a 100 families for $100,000 campaign, calling it 100 for 100. So if 100 families can give $1,000, that would bring us in 100,000. So that's been on social media.
Great.
And we launched that, and since that's launched, we've done, I think, 5,000 this year or something like that.
That's great.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Just
Tamara, what we had on the January general meeting, which was the last normal one, we had welcome and preview, then new business and public comment, then we had a guest, then we had committee updates, then more guests, then next steps and adjournment.
Okay.
So Jeff, I don't want to put you in the spot, but are you an Excel wizard? The reason I'm asking
Yeah,
is,
I am.
yeah, I thought you might be. We had just talked about a simple graph for Joe's playground project, a variation of the old thermometer of how much, what the goal is, $100,000 and how much we raised. And
there's someone on our committee who actually agreed to do that, and you just reminded me that I have not followed up with that person in a while.
right. Jeff, you're off the hook.
Okay.
Well, I know where he lives, so if I need
All
it.
right. All right. Yeah, and we can put that on the website and in the newsletter and give people a visual. So just like grade school.
Yes, no, those are great.
Yeah.
So Lynn, thank you for the review of the last meeting. What I can do is add new business in there before making board reports, if that works for everyone.
Yeah, I can send you that list if that would be helpful.
That would be, thank you. Okay. Are we good for this meeting and, I mean, this part of the meeting and go on to committee meeting reports? And I think Joe just gave his.
Did you want to do the candidate questions update, Tam?
Oh yeah. I put the questions out to the candidates just recently. I have to apologize. I've been just a little bit overwhelmed with stuff. And we've already gotten 3 responses, including that of the glowy faced guy named Terry in the picture. And so we've got three responses, and it went out to every one of the candidates, not just the top picks.
Who are the other 2? I'm just curious.
Montas was one for position 2, and I haven't seen the other one.
The other one hasn't answered the questions. He just has a 2-page manifesto.
Right.
Oh, okay. Right.
I think Mary Ann's working on them.
Okay, good.
So I'll upload them to our public documents site and put a link on the website and Facebook.
And I'll make sure that link goes out to Nextdoor. And so folks know to look at that if they want to find out more about these particular questions and how they answered it.
I can put something in the newsletter too, because I am planning for it to be out before the election.
That'd be great. Okay. All right. So we're down to committee reports, communication.
Yeah, we met last night, and I think we confirmed that we're going to do a summer digital only, probably closer to the end of June or early July. We're still in the, I just got the permit yesterday from the Park Bureau for the concerts, and I talked to Joe Schaefer, and she's been in communication with LaRonda Steele and Norman Sylvester, and they're still hoping that we'll be able to hold a concert. So
Yeah,
great. That looks promising if we just get the coronavirus under control. So that's where we're at there. But the idea was, I think, to hold the newsletter to as close to those dates as possible to include that information, whether they're a go or not.
Okay.
And what else do we have, gang?
We're going to make a recommendation to the board regarding the summer issues and also talk about history books and Nate.
So, well, I thought I did just about the summer issue. That'll be it every year.
You may have done it earlier. I was very late getting here today, so.
Yeah.
I don't remember you bringing that up.
Well, it was just now. It's so we'll do a midsummer issue, and that can be an annual thing.
Yeah. We were talking. We had talked a couple of times about whether or not it made sense to establish a regular summer issue, whether that's hard copy or digital. Does not have to be pre-decided, but because there's a 5-month gap between the general meetings in the spring and the fall, there's a lot of time that gets missed if we don't have an official designated summer issue going out to people.
Well, to do a hard copy would be a really heavy lift, and I would recommend personally that we just focus on doing a digital only. Summertime with everybody on vacation and other things to do. That's just my recommendation. We don't have to decide tonight.
Well, I'm happy to decide tonight. I think a digital issue during the summer months would be great. Anyone else?
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Adding a summer issue to the.
Second.
A summer digital
Summer digital issue.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of a summer digital issue?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay.
All those opposed, same sign? Okay, it's passed.
Thanks all.
So, and then Nate Ramsey, who came in, and I believe he kind of introduced, he formerly lived in Portland, moved back to DC. Now he's back in Portland, lives in the neighborhood. And he really enjoyed a Washington Post weekly feature while he was there on profiling local businesses. And he wanted to get his feet wet with the neighborhood association, I believe, and profile some of the local businesses. Am I capturing that right, Nate? You're on mute. No, you're not.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And the idea came up before COVID-19 stuff happened. I was thinking like a short feature in the newsletter with an interview of a local business owner. It seems possibly all the more relevant now, I think.
I think so.
In the environment we're in now. So yeah, that was kind of the idea. I mean, I just started picking up the newsletter in the last few months, the last few rounds. I thought it was great. But if there's room for something like this, I would be glad to contribute, but happy to modify as needed too, if that format doesn't jive with what others are thinking.
I think it's hi Nate, I'm Joe. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think the newsletter could certainly, maybe it's my bias, but I love profile pieces. I like reading about what people are doing. So I think that's a great idea. And my wife is a small business owner. I don't know what type of business you're looking for. It might be restaurants. That might be the more interesting piece right now. But no, I think that's a really, really good idea. I think it'd add a lot of flavor to the newsletter.
I totally agree.
Very timely too. Actually, how do you reopen a restaurant during these times? Very interesting.
We discussed what was it Jamie Van Horn, who was on the board and is a realtor and had to drop off the board because of a job change, offered to do an article for the newsletter on real estate in the neighborhood, various aspects, and So the committee thought that we have a couple of realtors who are advertisers, that we should extend an opportunity to them to also participate if they're interested. If there's more than one, then they could rotate like a real estate corner to the newsletter and provide an opportunity for information in that realm on a regular basis. So I think, Jennifer, you were going to reach out to Karen Shirley and Jenny, I can't remember her last name.
Moody.
Okay, so you'll get back to us on whether they're interested or not, and we'll try to engage that.
Lynn?
Yes.
I don't know, 2 or 3 issues ago, I sent you a couple of pictures, 47th and Sandy.
Yep.
I don't know if you still have those.
I do.
If you're doing digital, I always enjoy historical pictures.
Oh, yeah, I think the historical stuff is great. Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it doesn't even require any kind of other than a caption, but I know I sent you the little convenience store that was where the Umpqua Bank is, and now there's an apartment going up, and just reminding you have those. I've got some other ones that are basically digitalized that I've pulled off of they're archived photos from the city of Portland, but they're already online, so they're usable in our format. I should check that out.
Yep. Send them over, and any written stuff that you have or you want to put together, that's great too.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the history pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Good work, Terry. Okay, are there other articles that folks want to put in there for the
either yourselves or that you'd like to see somebody else do?
And Lynn, I'll submit. We had another donor, so I'll submit like a profile piece on 100 for 100 campaign, and that the playground project's still moving forward.
Anything you want in the May issue, I would like to have by the end of the week.
Okay.
Meg and Jay, is there a nice topic in there about, schools and teaching virtually you want to?
I don't know.
You have time in your 14-hour day?
No, I'm supposed to be working less than 5 hours a day. That's what they tell us.
Never works that way, does it?
And I'm supposed to go down to 20 hours a week. But
So how about an article on living next to a giant construction project?
oh my goodness. Their backup alarm is like the bane of my existence, but I'll just stop at that because we have like 2 minutes. I have to be on mute all the time in meetings because they're like, what is that?
Oh, God.
Well, if there's something that you'd like to send my way, please do. And if you don't feel that it's easily to do in the time that's available, don't sweat it. Tamara, you're going to have a column for me?
I will.
Okay.
Yep.
And I need an update on the land use stuff.
Yeah.
And any other committee things that there's anything to mention. I'm planning to put in some things about the street closure stuff. I don't have my list in front of me at the moment.
By the way, just for the record, that was Chloe's decision independently.
I saw that.
Of the board. Yeah, I mean the council.
Yeah, Amanda got back.
God.
Yeah.
What kahunas?
But yeah, so I'm going to put some of those kinds of things in there, so that's just kind of there. And something else that I think would be nice to do, particularly for now, and with the governor having now extended our state of emergency through July 4th, I think even more relevant would be to put in little blurbs about restaurants that are open. So if anybody wants to send me who they know, that would be great, because I'm not actively around the neighborhood now, so I don't know.
Well, one thing that's kind of cool is Shandong just opened their takeout only location on 63rd and Halsey.
Is that open?
I thought I saw a reference to that on Nextdoor.
Finally opened last Thursday, I think.
Yeah, it was supposed to open last October.
Yeah, I think permitting and landlord.
Yeah, I know. I talked to the owner of the property. He's lived in the neighborhood for years.
Yeah.
Where is this located?
63rd and Halsey,
Right next to the
cannabis place.
Right next to the
like
pot
still
shop.
the old laundromat.
Yeah, it used to be a laundromat for a lot of years. But they're open, so that's
Higgins family owns that property.
Hmm?
One of the brothers lives on 64th.
So we got Shandown takeout. We know the fire on the mountain. We know the fire on the mountain is open.
And I'm going to have to go here because I'm running out of battery.
We've got 4 minutes left.
Thanks, Terry.
Well, anybody send places that you know of that are open, just send me an email, please.
Okay.
Laurelwood and Clyde's are both open.
Which one?
Laurelwood is doing the takeout and
Okay.
Clyde's is open. They're doing takeout.
Great.
So
thanks.
Top Pie is open.
Pizza place, and Cabazon is selling seafood out of their kitchen every now
Are
and then.
they?
Yep.
Ooh, I have to go down there.
Mm-hmm. So good.
It's so good.
Okay.
They also are doing takeout. They sit outside. So.
Okay. Great.
And the goat, what's that place called? The goat?
Grogan's Goat.
Hogan's Goat. They're also open. Yeah.
And the food pods, Barley Pod, that's open. Barilix, you can do pickup orders for beer there. That's still happening.
Okay.
Pick up beer.
Lots of places
Like
are
it.
doing pickup beer. It's really fascinating.
I
They
was
got-
talking about doing a drive-through hooch the other day, thinking, why not? You know?
I actually just read something about that in the news the other day that a number of spirit organizations are petitioning for variances from the state laws that allows them to do it. I mean, if we can do beer, why not alcohol?
Right.
Every
Doing
day
easy
there's a
gas.
line at the store there on 72nd or 73rd and Sandy. There's a line that goes clear out into the sidewalk.
Wow.
The liquor store.
Oh,
So we've got 2 more minutes. Folks, do we have any more committee reports? I don't think we do. No one's been able to meet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Dan,
Keep on telling Lynn what's open.
do we want to, normally we select recipients to the Walker Awards for the concerts.
Oh, yes.
Do we even want to consider that?
Sure.
Maybe we don't, maybe we can send an email to the group list or something. since we're-
Yes, why don't we do that? And everybody just, we'll have a community chat about it. It's supposed to be, I think, selected by the chair, but we'll figure something out. Okay.
Is
So anybody,
there anything in writing about that anywhere?
Not that I've been able to find. And I think if we go ahead and do that, we do a NOAA. Only 2.
I like it. And I think, we're talking about creating some policies. If there's anyone who wants to just create the written policy for this, please do that. I'd like to, before I retire as the board chair, I'd like to have, a set of policies that we have adopted, and then I can hand that off to somebody. So
I think that would be a great legacy.
So I think on the website under, I don't know, our history, our neighborhood, something, the Walker Awards, there's a little blurb there that I was able to extract from past documents. It could be a start point, but there is something there about that. And for Jeff and Don, maybe their annual awards there's a little cash reward in there and a plaque for members of the community who have given extraordinary service to the community in some manner. So it's just a pat on the back, basically, for that the neighborhood association is giving to somebody in the neighborhood. So there's, as I say, on the website, there's information. There's a list of the past recipients that lists everybody that I could dig out of the archives.
Ed, do you recall what pull down that's under?
I don't, but just keep clicking, Lynn. I know
Will
it's
do.
there.
Okay, it's 9:01. Are there any other topics or items that need to be covered? Okay, I suggest a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn. Sorry, Ed, we beat you to it.